Hello, everyone. My name is Gilda Ross. I am the Glenbard Student and Community Projects Coordinator. I have been waiting a very long time to bring this program to you. We were just discussing that we chatted about this program a year ago and never imagining how timely this topic really could be. So I'm so delighted you are here. I'm aware of watch parties that are happening in schools throughout our area. A special welcome to those people. Delighted that Amy Blankson is back. She has brought along a colleague and a friend, Lauren Hasson, who will be joining her. And from the College of DuPage, we're really delighted that Dr. Jen Compton is here, and she is the Dean of STEM at the College of DuPage, our partner as we celebrate CTE Month, Career and Technical Education Month. I want to make a special request to everyone that's listening. We are so delighted to bring the free GPS to your community. You just saw the list of all the schools throughout area, the North Shore, South, West, East, all around Chicago and beyond that take advantage of GPS. Take a look at our YouTube channel for past events. And the request that we have is to please share this resource. So thank you so much for that. Quickly, this is what's coming up in the next couple of weeks. Can't think of a busier time of year. So coming up next week, Dr. Christine Crawford, she is the medical director of NAMI. She is going to be talking about her book, You Are Not Alone, Navigating Your Child's Mental Health with Wisdom from Experts and Real Families. That will be on the 10th at noon and 7 p.m. A watch party will be happening at NAMI locally in Wheaton. Jody Norgard will be in person at two events on the 11th. Jody has a book called More Than a Doll, and she'll be talking about her entrepreneurial journey with her Go-Go Sport doll. And she'll be talking at noon at the College of DuPage, and that will be a hybrid. And then at 7 p.m., she will be talking to female athletes at the Glenbard West in the auditorium. So that is on the 11th, noon and 7. Following week, we're going to welcome back Dr. Ellen Broughton. Her first book, Bright Kids Who Couldn't Care Less. And the new book is titled Bright Kids Who Can't Keep Up, about processing speed. So I hope you'll tune in on the 19th. And then another in-person event to celebrate Live Life Well Week. The theme of Live Life Well Week is Your Story is Just Beginning. And Dr. Garcia will be talking about her book, The 5 Habits of Hope. She will address Glenbard students during the day, and at night, the community. There will be a resource fair at 6 p.m., and we're hoping you can join us for that as well, with prizes and health assessments. CTE Month. What is CTE Month? You might have heard about it, but maybe not, but we're celebrating it today with our partner, the College of DuPage. The Career and Technical Education Month. It gives us a chance to celebrate learning that is relevant, that is inclusive, and rooted in opportunity. It reinforces the idea that success is not a one-size-fits-all, but that skilled trades, technical fields, and applied careers are essential to strong communities and strong economies. And I'm delighted about this partnership. I'm going to turn it over now to Dr. Jen Compton. Take it away.
Thank you so much, Gilda, for coordinating such an interesting and important discussion today. And thank you for everyone who's taken the time to join us. My name is Dr. Jen Compton, and I'm the Dean of STEM at the College of DuPage. We're especially excited because today's conversation also serves as a kickoff to CTE Month, a special time for the country to celebrate career and technical education and its vital role in preparing learners for the careers of tomorrow. Those careers will undoubtedly require new skill sets, comfort with rapid change, and most importantly, the ability to adapt thoughtfully and ethically in a technology-rich world. Our speakers will address some of those exact challenges and more. It is my pleasure to introduce them. Amy Blankson is the co-founder of Digital Wellness Institute and the best-selling author of The Future Happiness: 5 Modern Strategies for Balancing Productivity and Well-being in the Digital Era. A graduate of Harvard and the Yale School of Management, Amy is the only person to have received a Point of Light Award from 2 U.S. presidents. She also serves on the UN Global Happiness Council and Harvard AI for Human Flourishing Council, and is also a featured professor in Oprah's Happiness e-course. Joining her is Lauren Hasson, a senior Silicon Valley engineering leader, internationally recognized keynote speaker, and the award-winning founder of Develop Her, an innovative career development platform that has helped thousands of women advance and thrive in tech. Please help me in welcoming Amy Blankson and Lauren Hasson.
Thank you so much, Dr. Cumpston. We are thrilled to get to be here. This is my second time returning to GPS, and this time I've brought along one of my dearest friends, Lauren Hasson, and we've been looking forward to this for a long time now. We are passionate about this topic, and I just want to start off by saying thank you to all of you who took time out of your busy day to double down on parenting, to really think through what it means to parent in a tech-saturated era. And I just want to start off today by naming this moment that we are in, this moment of overwhelm, because I think that many of us feel it, but we don't always have language for what we're feeling. And I think that what we're doing is really raising kids in a world with this prevalence of tools and all this pressure, more information, more change than any generation before us. And the pace of that change it isn't slowing down. Everywhere we turn, there is a new warning of whether it's social media or screen time or now AI. And then there's college admissions and mental health and there's safety and achievement and all the things that you already know. I am a mother of 3 teenage daughters. I get it. And I feel what you are feeling. And it is part of why I wanted to do this talk here today with Lauren, because I feel like it's starting to feel a little bit like if you're not worried all the time as a parent, then you're not paying attention. And what I hear from parents most is not tell me what to do. It is really help me make sense of this time that we're in so that I can translate it for my kids, so that I can guide them. And that's what we're hoping to do here today. So before we get into frameworks or myths, I'd love to turn it over to Lauren a little bit, because I know Lauren works in the trenches with families, with children, coaching, mentoring, preparing people for disruption in real time. So we have an incredible expert here with us. Lauren, when you look at this moment for parents, young people, professionals, what are you seeing and what feels different right now for you?
Yes, it's absolutely different. And look, it's not just parents, all the way up to professionals are feeling it. I still work in the trenches at a Silicon Valley fintech to this day, and professionals are feeling it as well. So it's not just the kids, it's not just the parents parenting the kids, it's the parents themselves who are actually going through this. And what's different is the combination of that pressure and uncertainty. And that can be a lot because people are not just overwhelmed by how fast things changing, but we're really overwhelmed because you're not ready. It's one thing to be ready for the change and be able to adjust. Like, that's not a lot of pressure. What the pressure comes from is the rules are changing literally by the hour, and there is no clear playbook. And I see this over and over again, whether it's working with students, parents, professionals. This pressure is the signal that this disruption is already here and it's already in motion. And it's also the symptom that this readiness is missing. And when people don't have that skill, that what I call that muscle to practice to adapt, the CEO of Google's DeepMind said the skill of the future is the ability to learn, is learning how to learn. I take it one step further and say it's learning how to adapt. Like the one constant that you can count on is change. Change is coming. And so making decisions without having that certainty. People freeze, overcorrect, and outsource their thinking. That's what we have to learn and build those skills in our children and in ourselves as well.
Oh, that is amazing. You just hit the nail on the head. And I am so glad we're having this conversation, because I think we as parents all need to hear this and be reminded that it's not just pressure for pressure's sake. It's really that we're under pressure and things are changing and we're trying to find our grounding, but it's very difficult. And I like that distinction that it's not just learning to learn, but learning to adapt in that space. That is amazing. And it kind of connects with what I've been thinking about lately with kids and technology and the future, which is what I've been doing a lot of lately, and thinking about not just what is happening, but my positive psychology background really leads me to this idea of like, what do I want to have happen? Where do I want to move? What do I want my kids' future to look like? And what are the skills needed to get them there? And so one of the things I've been thinking about, and a term I've been using a lot, is this idea of super thinkers. And I use it with adults, I use it with kids and leaders and decision makers, because I think we're hitting this point where we are racing against AI for human intelligence, right? We are trying to stay ahead of what AI is doing. We are trying to assert our value in the world around us. But we also know that in this decision-making process, there's a lot of consolidation of power. I often say, do you want 8 billionaires to shape the future of your children, or do you want 8 billion of us to help shape that future? And unless we own that sense of agency that we already have, but sometimes forget, we are not going to ever get ahead of the next thing that's happening. And so when I'm talking about super thinkers, I'm thinking about this idea of like looking beyond the glitter of innovation to really ask some of the deeper, harder questions. The who's using this? Why are we using it? Where are we going? What's the point of all of this? Those deep 5W questions that were taught early in school. Who, what, when, where, why are we doing all of this? And these questions really came to head for me a few years ago. About 2 years ago, my daughter, who was 16 at the time, came to me. And I often say I know just enough to be dangerous. And so she knew I do some tech, I do some web development, I've done some app work. And so she said, Mom, I want to make an app that helps individuals who are biracial teens, because my children are biracial, to help their parents know how to do their curly hair. And I thought, wow, I must have done something wrong along the way here. But she wanted to help other kids to be able to navigate these sorts of tensions around hair that felt like very identity forming. And so I said, sure, we can do this. There's lots of apps out there that you can upload a picture of yourself and it'll show you different styles for your hair. This shouldn't be that hard. What I quickly learned was that it wasn't the app that was the problem. It was finding a data set that was publicly available that AI could actually read properly. And I would not have known that until I sat down with her to try to show her how to do things, right? And so as we dug in, I began to learn how AI sees. And what I learned was that our data set that we hand collected had different backgrounds, different lighting, different postures, different angles, different number of people, different hairstyles, and AI could not make sense of it until we told it how to make sense of it. And so what became clear to me, not only was we needed better data, but also that there's way more data available for individuals who have straight hair than textured hair. And that if we simply trained the data on what we already had publicly available, there would be this massive imbalance in the information that's coming out of our AI systems. Now, I know I'm going deep here, but there is a point to this, because what happens is that if you are aggregating information and you only have a little bit of information about this group and a lot about that group, the results that come out for the next months, years, will become exponentially staggered in the direction of the majority. And I think that poses a lot of different issues, both for equity, but also for the information that we're looking for our own children at any given time. What's normal, what's correct, what's typical may not be your child. And I don't think I would have understood any of this if I hadn't actually sat down to dig into the research with my child and start playing alongside of her. And I think this experience really stayed with both of us because it made us understand that we can't fix, improve, or even teach things that we don't understand. And we can't model confidence in the space or discernment if we're not willing to dig in. Especially when we have reservations and fears, it's very tempting to be like, oh, let's not go there, or that sounds dangerous, as opposed to, hey, let's understand it so that we know why it's dangerous or how it's dangerous and then fix it. And so that for me is when this idea of super thinkers crystallized. So as I mentioned, these super thinkers are the ones who in our world are going to be the ones telling AI what to do, the ones who are looking across AI and making sense of the information and finding the gaps and saying, hey, what are we missing? Wait a minute, how is it thinking about this group versus that group? And really begin to unmask what's happening underneath. And for those of you, I don't know if the show is still popular, but for those of you who had kids who were raised on the show Super Why, the entire premise is very simple. They teach kids in preschool and elementary school how to ask good questions. And as you do so, you build foundations for success. And this idea of Super Why really stuck with me because super thinking wasn't about having fast answers. It was about developing good judgment, right? Good judgment. And so to be a super thinker, whether you're a child, a parent, a teacher, a professional, you have to sit down and ask, okay, what is this tool telling me? Does it make sense? Why does it exist? Who made it? And why who and what are the biases that they're coming to this with? Who does it serve well? Who does it leave out? What are the trade-offs? And in asking these questions, well, the asking is actually the easy part. The harder part is parenting through a child exploring that step. And that process forces us to really confront our own internal assumptions, habits, and very real fears. And so this is what we want to do today with you. We want to really think about how do we upgrade our parenting style so that we can help our children to be ready. And how do we help them upgrade their readiness as well? So not readiness as age, it's not readiness as achievement or judgment or adaptability or agency, but really here, I'm sorry, I said that wrong. It's not readiness about age or discernment. It is about judgment, adaptability, and agency. And so what we want you to get out of this is this kind of core promise that if we shift how we think about readiness, from away from anxiety, away from control, towards judgment and agency, our kids become more confident and they become more adaptable and better to navigate uncertainty without falling apart. It doesn't require this massive to-do list, doesn't require you to become an AI expert, just requires this frame shift. And that's what we're all about today. And so we want to explore this by presenting to you 5 common parenting myths that we think can help us to uncover some of the things that might be holding us back. And so I'm going to give the first one, but then I want to turn it over to Lauren here just shortly because I want her to have so much time and wisdom to share with you. So our first myth of the day is, drum roll, it is that being a good parent means being anxious. So this myth sits under all the other ones. That's why I wanted to start with it here, because we as parents are anxious. The anxious generation, for those of you who have read that book, actually kind of made us a little bit more anxious because the more we realized our kids were anxious, it made us anxious. And it's become normalized to be anxious, especially around tech and AI, and even a sign of good parenting. If you're a good parent, you are worried about these things, which is understandable. But the research is showing us that parents that hold negative attitudes towards AI, their children are less likely to engage with these technologies in ways that do build cognitive development and digital literacy. And in contrast, the positive parental attitudes tend to lead to greater exposure to new technologies, which supports learning and skill development. So ironically, if we let fear shape how we approach these tools, we might actually be widening the gaps and opportunities and outcomes for our own children. And especially for parents who aren't equipped or confident enough to guide them, we need more adult supports thinking about this. So it's not that avoidance doesn't protect kids, it's that it delays their actual ability to be ready to face the future. So with that, Lauren, I want to turn this over to you. What are you seeing in this space, and how does parental anxiety shake out for you?
Yes, and I see it all the time. I have it myself, even though I don't have children. I have anxiety, and I'll offer the antithesis is that it's not anxiety, it's that you are lacking the confidence. Not just confidence that you know it, but confidence that whatever is thrown at you, you can figure it out. And so much of anxiety is driven in thinking I need to have certainty in all the answers up front. when really you just need to know whatever comes your way, you can figure it out. And that confidence brings a sense of calm. And what we're feeling through the anxiety is pressure. And pressure isn't the enemy here. In fact, it's a very important signal that is sharing that people don't yet have that confidence. They don't have the skills to know. It's really the confidence to know that whatever comes at me, I can figure it out. I know how to adapt. I am agile. And when this anxiety becomes your OS, your operating system, what happens is people freeze. They stall out, they stop experimenting, they stop just making decisions. They are perpetually waiting for certainty. And guess what? That certainty, it will never come. Um, and so, really, the skill we want to build is agility and adaptability and the confidence, not that I have the answers, but I can figure it out as I go and respond in real time.
That is amazing, Lauren. And I think, that responding in real time is interesting because I think when anxiety drives parenting, the lever that is easiest for us to pull is to pull back control. And that really brings us to myth number 2, which is all about screens. As parents, we think, okay, too much screen time means danger. So less screen time means that you will have better well-being. And this is a myth because we know that screen time itself has become a fairly blunt instrument. If you ask any parent, I actually have yet to meet a parent who has cracked the code on keeping screen time to 2 hours or less across all the devices in the house, the school computer, the school tablet, the video game systems, the phone, the iPad. It is overwhelming. And frankly, I think it is a mountain that is, I don't think that we have the tools to do it well. And yet we feel the pressure that we're doing bad if we haven't. So I just want to level set that if you haven't cracked the code, you are not alone. But I also want to challenge that assumption that less screen time actually means that your kids will be healthier. Because what we're noticing, and I come at this because my husband is an adolescent medicine doctor. He's a pediatrician who specializes in teen and adult health. And what he sees time and time again with the families coming through his clinic is that young people could have only 1 hour of screen time, but if they are not sleeping, they're not eating, they're not socializing, they're not doing their schoolwork, then they are not actually healthier. And so it really isn't about minutes, it's about skills. And one of the things that I wanted to bring to you today as a resource that you can use is something called the Digital Readiness Index. And it is a free assessment for parents that just came out last week. So it's hot off the press for parents who are thinking about whether to give their kids a smartphone, which is that very first step before we even talk about screen time. And I want to pop in the chat a link for you that you can use to actually go think about, is your child ready for a smartphone? So if you're on the cusp of that, then that is something that I want you to be able to have as a resource. And it's based on looking at the maturity of your child, based on the ages and stages scale from pediatrics, combined with observed parent behaviors, combined with the assessment of your own family readiness. Because we know family systems are an important part of these combinations. And so I think that being able to have tools that give us control versus just shutting down the conversation is a lot more empowering both for you and for the young people that you're working with. Lauren, what are you seeing?
Yes, number one, I want to say everyone get in there and get that tool. Amy's got some really exciting things on the horizon there that you do not want to miss out. And as a technologist, I am loving what she has in development. And yes, I want to double down. Over restriction, yeah, it can de delay independence or even interdependence, which is even higher level than independence. And these skills just don't magically appear at 18 or when you graduate college or when you're done with your last year of school. It's something that develops over time. It compounds. Amy talked about compounding data sets earlier. Compounding is by far the most powerful force in the entire world. I think it was either Albert Einstein or Isaac Newton who said that. And I talk about the power of minimum viable steps taken every single day, just moving the ball a little bit ahead every single day. it feels like nothing in the moment, but when you look back after a year, after 18 years, you have massively moved the needle and trained this. And look, I mean, I was the classic overachiever. I mean, there was nothing that I did not achieve as a high school student or a college student. And yet when I graduated, I somewhat failed to launch in life because I hadn't learned these important skills. There were so many guardrails. There were almost too many guardrails in place. And what the skill that I needed to learn was developing my own guardrails and balance. And that has been, gosh, a over 20-year journey as an adult. Now, I'm still on the way. I don't know if you can say I've arrived, but I have it better figured out. And I'm absolutely thriving now as an adult because I have learned to balance and really set my own boundaries for myself, and healthy boundaries. And that's something that can start at a very, very young age.
Yeah. And you know what that reminds me of too, Lauren, is this idea from economics of the law of diminishing returns, that even as adults, too much of a good thing can be bad for us, right? So, like, you could be doing amazing work and your kids could be reading a zillion books in their online Kindle, and maybe they are doing so many club sports that they barely have time to sleep at night. All of these things are signs of like too much of a good thing. And at some point, there's a steep drop off in the value and the utility of these things. And certainly screens, even the best education programs have that point of drop off. So where do we really think about what that means in terms of what our balance looks like, both for ourselves and for our kids? So I love that. And, you know, once we begin to move beyond this thinking about screen time is the determinant of well-being, and we start thinking about like, what kind of child do we want to show up in the world, especially the digital world, we turn to digital citizenship, which brings us to myth number 3. And myth number 3 is that digital citizenship is about rules and manners. And I'm sure in your head you're thinking, wait, isn't it? And I actually spent a while thinking about this as well, because that's what we have been talking about for the past 5-6 years, is that our kids need digital citizenship. That used to be enough. Don't be rude online, be respectful, don't post things you wouldn't want other people to see. But today, digital citizenship is transforming into judgment. What to trust, what's real, how systems shape behavior, how our values show up in our decision making. So this myth is about how our kids show up in digital spaces and what we're preparing them to do from a judgment perspective. Lauren, what are you seeing?
Oh my goodness, so much. So this is the human advantage where we bring as humans our judgment, our integrity, our values, and our ethics to the table. And this shows up everywhere in life as an adult. Reputation, credibility, ethical decision making, training AI sets, just like you were talking about earlier. I mean, it's who is the person behind this making the decisions. And in a world and in disrupted environments where the rules, they are not clear, people need they need a compass. They don't need a turn by turn map on how to get there, but they need a compass to help navigate decisions that we didn't even know were coming because the rules are being rewritten by the day.
And I actually think there's some good news to share in this one. I think a lot of time these conversations around screen time can be fairly negative and fear-inducing. But I want to bring one piece of good news, and that is that I think that when we are having these conversations with our young people, they are starting to get it. They are in the world of TikTok and Instagram, where they're seeing fake things that are to them very obviously AI, but maybe not for us. And we're still learning alongside them. But one of the things that AI has failed to do is to replicate the best of what makes your young people the humans that they are. And that is the creativity, the collaboration, the ability to listen to one another and make sense and meaning out of the things that are happening around us. And so I think when we're talking about digital citizenship, we have an opportunity to reinforce that our kids have such beautiful value already embedded in them early on, and that they need to own that value as part of their digital citizenship. The world needs them to bring their humanity to these conversations. Which brings me actually to our myth number 4, which is that when I keep my kids away from AI, it will help protect them. AI is dangerous. I'm going to swear it off so that my kids will be safe. That's the myth. And so we know that AI is already embedded in so many things. You may not even know all the things it's embedded in, from your car to the education apps they're using in school, to your email, to the text messages that you are having now summarized. AI shows up everywhere. So number one, it's pretty hard to keep away from AI because AI is not a standalone application. It is all the things. It is a way of thinking through questions and not through answers. And so I think that I hit this before, but it's really talking about that the risk isn't exposure, it's unexamined resilience. And that when we give our kids guided practice and how to use it, it actually builds very critical wisdom. So our kids need practice. They need to know when to use tools and when not. They need to know when to slow down and when it's okay to speed up. They need to learn when to trust themselves and when to ask questions, even about themselves and the things that they're producing. Lauren, how are you seeing this show up for you in the work you're doing?
Yeah, so that agility doesn't just magically appear one day. It is learned in real-time moments from real signal feedback. And the people who are thriving aren't the ones who have all the answers or who've waited for certainty and figured it all out. They're the ones who are diving into it to test and experiment with it and learn, how does this augment me? And then when is this not useful? Like, when do I not use it? It's something that I'm learning myself. Like, how does this level me up to the next level, to superhuman Lauren level? And then what is my unique value that I bring to the table? What can't I outsource to AI that I need to retain as the unique Lauren sauce? And it's about experimentation. Goes back to anxiety and control. If we have really rigid rules on this and certainty, it's really hard to discover that little golden nugget that you didn't know was out there and double down on it. And it's also harder to discard something that just doesn't serve you, or detracts. And you have to be just like, I'm going to go nerd on you, but sometimes you have to be willing to throw away code that just doesn't work anymore and upgrade your operating system. And I constantly come back to the true sign of intelligence isn't having all the answers, but it's when you get new and better information, it's being able to say, hey, maybe I was wrong before, or I am better informed now. And then I call it a software upgrade, upgrading your software and then being better.
Yeah. I think in my own life as a writer, the tools do seem like they are shining, glittery, new productivity boosting opportunities that are too hard to ignore. But what I'm finding in very short order is this kind of boomerang effect, that there's this curiosity that leads us all into trying new things for a while. And then you start to recognize where the system fails, where the patterns emerge, where things don't make sense, where it's obviously AI. And there's times when it's okay for me to use AI. And there are times where my voice, my uniqueness is absolutely essential. And it may not be as high level as some of the other things that are being produced, but it's real, it's authentic, it's genuine, and it makes sense in a very deep level because this is my line of linear thinking. And I think my heart of hearts for my own children is to figure out that line. Like, where is it okay to use it? Where is it not? And when is it better in your own voice? So that brings us back to myth number 5, number 5 of 5 today. And that is achievement benchmarks equal life readiness. Achievement benchmarks equal life readiness. If my kids can get good grades, well, then they're going to get into school. And if they get into school, then they are going to get a good job. And if they get a good job, then they're going to be able to get that house with the picket fence and 2.5 children. That is the American dream, right? But these things don't actually equate. And I learned this a few years ago. My brother, his name is Sean Acor. I think he is often in some of these parenting spaces as well, talking about this idea that of the happiness advantage. And he talks about how we have been trained from early age that if we are successful, then we'll be happy. And at the end of the day, isn't that what we want? We want our kids to be happy. But what the research is actually showing is that that formula is backwards and broken. That if we can be happy in the present, we are more likely to be successful in the future. And so just checking all the boxes, jumping through all the hoops, that's exhausting. And it doesn't actually get you to where you thought you were going to go necessarily. And so I like these idea of benchmarks, just like New Year's resolutions. They give us something to move towards because they're measurable. But I do think that optimizing just for achievement or just for success can actually crowd out curiosity and risk-taking and original thinking. Next week, I'm giving a talk about STEM for women leaders. And I was reflecting on my middle daughter who was all in on STEM when she was about 7 or 8. And then around 9, she started to lose her confidence and think, well, I'm not that good at math. I'm not good at these things. And her identity as an innovator or an inventor began to fade away. And as a mom, that broke my heart. So I was like, wow, what did I do wrong that she doesn't see herself? How can I fix this? And what I've come to realize a few years later, now she's 16, is that I was the one limiting her to what I thought achievement looked like and what I thought her potential was. Today, she is an award-winning teen filmmaker who has to use technology to edit, to do graphic design, to be able to plan out her shots. She's using math, she's using engineering with like how she sets up shots. And I keep thinking to myself, she doesn't identify as a STEM girl, but she's doing all the things. Why am I trying to fit her into this box? So I know we're trying to think about how do we raise lifelong learners. And one of the expressions I've been using lately is that I am done with K-12, which is shocking. But what I'm actually moving into is K-100. I don't want to have to say, oh, I wish I could go back to school. I'm going to be in school for my entire life because I am learning constantly. That's the growth mindset we're going for and that I want for my children to have. Lauren, over to you. What are you seeing here?
Yes. And so, if I can share a little bit of my own personal journey, I achieved everything that I should have achieved on paper. I was high school valedictorian at a top 50 high school, National Merit Scholar, triple major at Duke, gave the best honors thesis commencement thing, landed a top Silicon Valley investment banking job, it was in the office that took Google public. On paper, I was hitting it out of the park. And I knew how to achieve achievement, but I didn't know how to achieve fulfillment and happiness. And I crashed and burned. I always wanted to build. I built my first company. I helped college students and graduate students get their first job or internship. And then I got wiped out by the 2008 financial crisis and the mobile tech revolution. And you may think, yeah, well, you had a triple major from Duke. No one cared because I couldn't write a line of code. And I was working for $9 an hour at Restoration Hardware. And I couldn't even go across the street to On the Border to have dinner with my partner and his friend because I couldn't afford the food. But I took one of those career assessments and it said I should be developing software because that's what I like to build and create, and I like to connect with people. And the software industry had changed. And so it felt like a cruel joke because my degree was over 7 years outdated. Like to put that in perspective, when I graduated, not only did the iPhone not exist, but the razor hadn't been invented yet, and like SMS text messaging wasn't a thing. So it was completely outdated, and it felt like a cruel joke. But I put in the work, and I found happiness. In fact, that's how I found Amy is I read her brother's book and I was like, yes, this is what I did. I didn't read the book and then go do it. I was like, this is what I did to find it. And it wasn't that I had all the answers. And it wasn't that I was the most qualified. In fact, every other person that I worked with at the time, I went from volunteering at a local hackathon on a Saturday, not being able to write a line of code, to 2 years later, I was flying on a private 747 jet with world tech innovators. I mean, Gavin Newsom, who founded Craig's Mark, Lieutenant Governor of California, Gavin Newsom at the time. And then I got an invite to fly on a private 747 jet to attend the UKG Innovation Conference to present ideas to the United Nations. Now, the way I got there wasn't by having all the answers. It wasn't even being ready. I just had a bias to action. And someone actually pointed this out to me 2 weeks ago over dinner. And I believe it or not, it was the first time I ever heard it. But it was like I was willing to take risks, and I'm willing to fail publicly. And here's the difference. I don't stay down very long. And this is what the most successful people I know and that I follow. We fail just like everyone else. The only difference is we pick ourselves back up faster and we try again. And I have a laundry list of successes. I am more proud of my laundry list of setbacks and my ultimate comebacks. And so I don't have children, but I coach a lot of children and adults. And by far, it's not just learning how to learn because we're going to have another revolution. It's not going to be AI in 5 years. It's going to be something else. And we need to learn how to adapt. And that's what I teach is it comes from action and bias towards action, being willing and really courageous enough to put yourself out there. And then I teach what I call minimum viable steps, which is taking the smallest step forward that you can take on even your worst day. Like when you have work travel days, when you have game travel days. I mean, it's just like, can you commit to just 3 1-minute sessions of reading about a new skill? And what that does is it builds momentum and consistency. And then that turns into confidence. Confidence is what helps you overcome uncertainty. And ultimately, it leads to identity shift. And when you start thinking about yourself as someone who's agile and a lifelong learner, like Amy said, K to 100, and you think of someone as someone who can handle whatever is thrown your way, that is the life skill worth learning.
Oh, that's amazing, Lauren. And how do you go about building up that kind of confidence in the kids that you're working with, or how do you coach parents to build that confidence? What does that actually look like?
So, starting with the smallest step right there in that moment, figuring out what is that one thing that you can do today when it's, I don't know what I want to do, or to apply for college, and I have to put my ideas down on paper. You know what the smallest step is? Just opening your Word document. That is the minimum viable step, which is like it takes, I'm going to nerd out on you here because I am an engineer, but it takes far more energy to get started than it does to keep going. And so you got to figure out what is the smallest thing you can do to start movement and then keep going. And then so many people put then, and I'm just using like a personal statement as an example, but then it's just put one bullet on the page and then put the second bullet on the page and then start organizing. And I wrote an honors thesis and I used to write papers in college, and then my pandemic surprise was I wrote a book. And I always look at the finished product, but I forget what went into the messy middle of getting started, and it's messy. And like that's what I try to show on LinkedIn. I'll drop my LinkedIn in the chat shortly, but I try to show the messy middle. And like I have days where I also one of the biggest things that I did, and I'll have to give a shout out to it, taking care of your health. Um, that is something that money can't buy is your health. And I had some health issues, and I got up to 300 pounds, and I lost 130 pounds in 2 years. And my minimum viable step was just cutting my meals in half. And then when I started to get better shape, it was not weight training; it was just showing up at the gym. And some days it wasn't pretty. So follow me for the messy middle. But like, I think we need, as parents, we need to talk about the messy middle. As educators, we need to talk about the messy middle. And I mean, I talk about as an entrepreneur, I look at, Twitter, what it looked like on V1 or V0, like nothing like it does today. So many of us are comparing ourselves. Well, number one, comparison is the thief of joy. Like, cut that out as quickly as you possibly can and focus on your own race. But so many of us are comparing our messy middle to other people's Instagram highlight reel. And that's where I try to be different. And, thank God for my friend Amy who like can just show up and be real with me as well. But I think that's what I'm trying to do in the world is show what it takes in the messy middle to get to where I am. And I mean, I'm still on my way. I'm still figuring it out. And I'm learning from Amy. I'm learning from all of you. And I'm constantly updating my operating system.
I love that. And I think, there's the minimum viable step. I love that MVP. That language is often used in a product roadmap for a tech build, right? For those of you who are in this space. And I'm actually building an app right now, so this is super relevant. We are working so hard to think, what is that smallest step? What's the first thing that we can and need to do? And on the back end of that is crafting a whole product roadmap. What happens next? How do we level up? What comes? And when I'm thinking about children, one of the things that I've noticed is that the tech overwhelm is the messy middle. It is, and coming full circle here, it's coming at us like a tidal wave or tsunami, tornado. We're not exactly sure where it's coming from, but it's on all sides, right? And so trying to help our kids make sense of it means that we need to get really clear as parents on a clear progression. What is our roadmap for parenting, and how do we bring them along so that when they get to be on their own or more independent, when we're not looking over their shoulder, when we're not holding their hand through the process, that they are confident and capable to be able to make those decisions. And as a very small use case here, what we're doing with the app is connected to that digital readiness index that I posted earlier. But the idea is that we as parents have given our kids phones, and then we are trying to manage on the back end. How do we lock and block the content that we don't want them to see? How do we shut down the internet so that they aren't checking it late at night? It's all very control based. And what I realized after working for about 15 years in the space was that we had done nothing to prepare them for the moment that we passed over the phone. And so what we're trying to do at First Phone License is to give them a pathway to permission. So thinking about not shutting down, but really opening the world in a very slow, meticulously thoughtful way. What apps do they need first? And what then can I teach them to get the next set of apps and then the next set, so that they level up until the moment where we give them access to everything. It seems crazy to me in retrospect that we hand over a phone and it's like Pandora's box. And then we're like, oh my gosh. I was on a phone call or a LinkedIn conversation that was going viral yesterday, talking about school phone bans and about, are bans good or are bans bad? And I had to step back and say, I think that we are having the wrong conversation. I think that what we really are asking is, we want to keep our kids safe. We want to keep our kids learning. When and how are we teaching them the skills to do that, so that when they leave the school, they're on a path where they can do their homework, get good sleep, have a sense of balance, and do all the things so they show up ready to learn. It's those after hours moments that I think are the point that we as parents rise up as the thought leaders in this space, and the ones who are able to really provide that guidance that they're so hungry for. They want to please us. They want our trust. They want responsibility. They just don't know how to get there. And so that's what I'm working on right now, trying to help them do. But I think it is a learning lesson for all of us in thinking about whether it's your tech overwhelm or your kids' tech overwhelm. How do I chunk that into little pieces so that I can get where I ultimately want to get to? And what does that look like? What would it mean for my kids to flourish in the digital era? And how can I help raise them up to be a role model for other children and for future generations? So with that, Lauren, I just want to pass it over to you. I know we're getting close to Q&A time. What other thoughts do you want to share?
I'll give one quick plug on what I'm working on. So I am all about helping leaders teams, and then parents, and then our future leaders become truly disruption ready, how to learn, adapt new skills, and also really develop that agility skills. So I still work on the front lines of tech myself. So I'm bringing like the best and greatest and latest from Silicon Valley innovation. But I do coaching and advisory, and my favorite thing is keynote speaking as well. And I am super excited about Amy. I mean, like, I might even use it to, I'm an iOS user. I might even use it to figure out how to use an Android phone. So there is a whole market for adults looking to make an ecosystem hop.
Absolutely. Well, I love that, Lauren. And I'm going to pop in the chat. I know Lauren has as well ways to connect with her. And so if those resources are useful to you, you want to go deeper, you have questions, you want to connect more, we are both open books. We would love to chat with you and to be of use and assistance to you. And I hope that this was helpful to you in your processing in your day. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Gilda for Q&A.
So much here. Your honesty, your vulnerability, sharing your experiences as a parent, as an engineer, in the real world, in the trenches. I'm so grateful for your willingness to share all that and inspire us with every word that you said here. It's fabulous information. So much to remember and take away. K through 100, right? We love that. Oh my gosh. Well, I've got some questions, but Dr. Jen, I'm going to turn over to you to start us off.
Sure. So you mentioned that it's hard to teach our children if we don't understand ourselves some concepts. So as we get into AI, as we move into quantum, especially in the Chicagoland area, what can parents do to teach their children or just learn themselves to be able to be in a position to teach their children about what's coming and prepare them for roles that maybe don't even exist yet?
Yeah. Yeah.
Great question. Lauren, do you want to take this one first?
Sure, we'll hand it off. So
Okay.
I start just by finding that smallest step forward that you can take and finding a reliable source. My go-to is LinkedIn, and I find the authorities, the followers. Typically, they have a lot of followers. They publish content, and then also LinkedIn is also really publishing a lot of thought leadership, and I use that too. And I just go down rabbit holes to finding what are the best resources. D Despite having, the degree from Duke, it was actually a community college course that got me back on the tech track. And so and so many resources today are free. LinkedIn Learning, well, I think that's a paid subscription, but I mean, YouTube, I mean, there is a resource out there. You just have to be creative, make sure that it's reputable. And then also think about, and this was critical for me, it was how do you learn and how do you best process? Like, what's the fastest way to learn? Sometimes it's getting a mentor, sometimes it's in person or virtual learning, sometimes it's video, sometimes it's text, audio, and really invest a little time up front to figure out how do you best learn. It might be a while since you had to learn something. And so spending some time to figure out what's the fastest way to accelerate information adoption. Amy.
I love that. I'll add to it too. I mean, while there's a plethora of resources out there, I'll add the Khan Academy, Common Sense Media are great. It takes just a search for technical skills, like anything you want to learn, it is available to you at the touch of a button, right? And many are free. But the one thing that you will not find is the ability to reinforce your children's own sense of self and confidence. That's something that only you as a parent can do. And I think one of the best ways to do it is to come alongside your child. Back in the days of the tiger parenting, for those of you who remember that book about tiger parenting, I was on the dolphin parenting track, which was, have fun playing with your kids, ask them these questions and ask them questions that maybe are ahead of their time, like, hey, what do you think you're better at than AI? Or what is it that you think you add value to? Or how can you tell? Like going back to the who, what, when, where, how questions, you can scale them up or down to be age appropriate. But in asking them, you take a position of mutual submission, as my husband would say in his clinic. And that mutual submission says, hey, I value that you have a different perspective as a young person in this era versus me. what can we learn from you? What can I learn from you? What can you learn from me? And let's solve a problem together. And I think that's a very fun way, like with the app that my daughter and I made early on, was bumbling through it together. We were working on it side by side, and I've done the same thing wherever I can. Bring a kid to a conference, invite them into a conversation, so that it doesn't feel didactic, but actually almost like a friend making sense of the world. Because ultimately, what you're doing is meaning making, and they need to know that they have value to you and to the world in that space.
Yeah.
Thank you
Excellent.
so much.
Excellent. Here is a question from Karen in California. My two boys are now adults, but I know that helping my boys learn to adapt is not something I felt I could teach them on my own, and that has only become harder for parents today. How can parents work with teachers and coaches and mentors to help them become the super thinkers you describe?
My screen glitched, as these things do with technology, so I didn't hear the question. Can I have you ask that one more
You know
time?
what? It's in the Q&A. I think you can even pull it up from Karen there. But I will read it again. My two boys are now adults. I know that helping my boys learn to adapt is not something I felt I could teach them on my own, and that has only become harder for parents today. So, how can parents work with teachers and coaches and mentors to help them become the super thinkers you describe?
Hmm. One thing I think is interesting is we as parents have a lot of power, right? Especially with the educational system, I think we undersell what power we have. And so when parents ask for resources, when they're asking for more guidance, when they're asking to understand, it puts the school on oh, maybe I should be thinking about this. And yes, there's politics and budgets and there's curriculum timing, but they are listening. And recently I went to I had the opportunity to be principal for a day at Dallas ISD, which was amazing. And I just got to shadow the principal, and I sat down with some of the teachers and I talked to some of the kids at the lunchroom table, and that gave me such great insight. But one question I went in with, and I asked every group, was, so with the rise of AI, how are you thinking about this? How are you teaching it? What are you teaching? And the answer that I got was that we would love to be teaching it, but we don't have a curriculum for it. And I don't know if there's one out there, so we're not doing anything. Guys, that is not good enough. That is not enough. We have to do more. And if it's the parents who have to push that button to say, wow, the world is changing and we're in a digital renaissance, and if schools aren't teaching this, who's going to teach it? Then we introduce them to the tools. We show them, we bring the tools to the school and make that happen. And so that is a challenge to all of you, is to think through, what can you do as a parent to help make the school be able to respond better and to lean into more capability and sense of agency with that.
And I would add lead with curiosity. Um, and ask yourself, how else might I be able to do that? That one question alone has changed my life when I use the word how else might I. If like I haven't if I didn't get that to them before they became adults, how else might I get that to them now? What opportunities present today? So you mentioned coaches, mentors, educators, and having those conversations. And the one thing that's helped me as a leader and as a coach and as an advisor is leading with curiosity and asking open-ended questions. And the question, how else, is kind of opening up brainstorming rather than linear solution focused thinking. As much as I am an engineer, I am far more creative. And when I actually struggle the most in life, it's when I'm not being creative enough, and not thinking outside the box. And that's when I start heading into those roles. So if I can be an advocate for the arts, and creative thinking and solutioning, that is very, very important to being agile and being adaptable, is thinking about creative ways to solve problems.
Yeah.
And that comes from genuine curiosity. And that goes back to the previous question, which is start where you're genuinely curious, because you're going to lose track of time when you do that.
Yeah, beautiful. That leads into this next question. Um, as a parent, I was raised to believe there was a right path after high school. What mindset shifts do you think families need to make today to better support their students? What do you think more parents, what do you wish more parents understood about some of these other career and technical education paths that may get overlooked?
Hmm. Lauren, you want to take this one? I'm sure you see this
I
all the
have I
time.
have definite thoughts, not only from my personal experience, but in working with tons of students and then also professionals who are, a lot are realizing their ladder is up against the wrong building entirely,
Mm,
midlife. So I look at not only what are you passionate about, because passion is important, but it doesn't pay the bills. I also think about what does the market need, and what skills are paying. And I try to, and then what am I naturally good at? Like the just like I lose track of time. This comes naturally to me. And I'm thinking like Venn diagram, where do they intersect? And that's where I look in the middle. And for me, that was having some kind of connection, building. I mean, for me, it really boiled down to I am creative and I am technical. Really, I'm a builder. Now, that is in the entrepreneur that I am, that is in the brand builder that I am, that is in the I am a software engineer and I build apps. I also wanted to be an architect growing up, and I actually think I was dead on in that career assessment. And my family, my discouraged that. And look where I am. Essentially an architect of so many things right now. And so I think that the critical part is finding what the current market needs, and that's where I talk about when I talk with professionals, finding those front of line skills. And the front of line skills, which are where is every company saying we don't have enough people who have those skills and we're willing to pay them top dollar, and how does that align with what you're interested in, and then go learn those skills. And by the way, you don't have to play 20 years of catch up. You just have to be able to do the latest and greatest.
mhm, mhm,
Amy.
mhm.
I think that we might be at time if I'm
Oh,
correct, Gilda, and I want to respect everyone's time. So I'll turn it back to you.
Well, I just want to reiterate, I have some words here that have come up again and again and again this hour that I want everybody to take away with. You talked about, I love this, the skill of the future is yes, learning how to learn, but learning to adapt in that space. These are things that we need to keep in the forefront of our mind. Every single GPS speaker talks about giving kids more agency, more autonomy, about listening non-judgmentally, about leaning in. We want them to be open to us, but if we don't lead into the things that they're interested in, why would they want to include us? So, the curiosity. Oh my gosh, so key. And again, I love when we talked about happiness, about how really, what is it? It is really success. How do we get there? Let's work on the happiness part, and it will come. Let's talk about I love the way you talked about how AI is so embedded already. So let's have that knowledge and awareness that it's not out there, but it is here, and really it is on all of us to learn together. There's so much that comes up at GPS too. Almost every single time there's a question about perfectionism. And I think you've really talked about that as well. About, last week it was someone saying, get off at the wrong exit sometime. And I love what you're doing when you and your child are learning this together and making mistakes together, because Lauren, as you so beautifully described, those mistakes are going to come. Those stumbling blocks are going to come. And if we build that flexibility, that adaptability, there's success, there's happiness, there's the future for our children. Fabulous conversation. I'm so grateful. Amy, you took the lead on this, and you talked about what this needed to look like, and I couldn't be more grateful. Lovely to have these two amazing thought leaders with us, and we'll try to be thought leaders as well as you have asked us to be. Thank you, everyone.